This is the year that the real Graham Ashcraft must stand up for the Reds.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Reds podcast. My name is Jeff Carr, and I am a lifelong Cincinnati Reds fan. I've been hosting this podcast now going on my 7th season, and I'm glad that you're alongside me here today. Locked On Reds is for the Reds fan that knows what happened. They want to know why, and we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team, your Cincinnati Reds, every single day. Shout out to our everydayers out there. Thanks for always making us your first listen of the day. Glad to be alongside you here this morning because on today's show, we are 1 week away from opening day. It's almost here. Cannot wait. But hey, that number 7, 1 week, 7 days, all that stuff. That number 7 has had some names, but no real standouts in Reds history. I'm going to try to nail down my favorite later on in the show. Experience makes the Reds bullpen a strength and a reason to believe in this team. I'll tell you why in just a few minutes. But I want to start today by looking at the importance of this season for Graham Ashcraft. That's coming up on today's podcast that is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. This is a make-or-break year for Graham Ashcraft because 2025 is when he really needs to prove to the Reds more so than us. I mean, us fans, we love our guys, but he's got to prove to the Reds that he can hack it at the MLB level. I don't know who Graham Ashcraft is because when you look at his career profile right now, it's not really that impressive. In 60 career games, he has a 4.91 ERA while allowing almost a base runner and a half per inning, which means if he has a clean inning, the next inning, there's going to be at least 3 guys on base. That's just how this rolls. His career walks plus hits per innings pitched, his whip for his career is 1.48. So it's a little bit under a base runner and a half per inning, but still that's a lot. The base paths are kind of chock full whenever he's up on the mound. He's been very mid compared to other young pitchers in the organization. And mid, I don't want it to sound like it's horrible. He's not horrible, but also he's kind of the baseline, right? Like, I think that's why we're not seeing him in the starting rotation. They're really just making sure that Andrew Abbott is ready to go. He is slated to make one more start. The plan for that is to pitch and throw 75 pitches, and then he should be ready to take over the number 5 starting role for the Cincinnati Reds. That means that Graham Ashcraft either needs to move to the bullpen or go down to Louisville and say stretch out as a starter. I think ultimately the best value for Graham Ashcraft and for the Reds is that he moves to the bullpen. But that's got to happen first. That hasn't happened. And quite frankly, he hasn't pitched well this spring. We talked a lot about, and I'm not going to rehash the entire conversation, but on Monday, Steve and I really discussed the fact that Graham Ashcraft is one of those guys that showed up to camp not in the best shape of his life and not ready to go. He is getting there. He is working his way toward being ready, but he didn't show up ready. A lot of guys did. A lot of guys showed up, best shape of their lives, all that stuff. Graham Ashcraft wasn't one of them. And that's kind of disheartening, given that his first 3 years in the bigs have been just right? I mean, last year he only made 15 starts, and he dealt with injuries all year long. So we'd figure that he would come into camp super healthy, super jacked, ready to go, all that stuff. That wasn't the case. The most starts that he's made in his career was back in 2023 when he made 26 starts. He made 19 starts back in 2022. Remember, he burst onto the scene in 2022, and we kind of thought, wow, do the Reds really have like 3 really good pitchers for the future at the top of their rotation? But ever since those first handful of starts with Graham Ashcraft, he has been all over the place. He is the quintessential sample size darling, right? Like, he's a guy, and I'm sure that you're doing it right now. You can think of a group of games, right? Like 7 or 8 starts in a row that he made that he was lights out. We're talking like an ERA under 3, bunch of strikeouts, not a lot of walks, really good run. Here's the problem. Just as easy as you can think of 8 good starts, you can think of 8 bad starts too. He has this really roller coaster nature to his career that makes it tough to count on him. You want a guy that you can count on every 5th day coming out. But if you're telling me you got a guy in your rotation that, all right, this start, he's going to be lights out. It's going to be almost a shutout for 6 or 7 innings. You're going to win. And then 5 days from now, he's going to come in and give up like 6 runs in the first inning. I don't want that. I just don't. Like, I need consistency at the major league level. We have seen too many pitching performances and pitchers that put together performances like that here in Cincinnati. And we squint really hard at the good games and we say, well, if they could just do that on a more consistent basis, then we'd love them. And we keep them around for too long and the Reds just never get anything out of those guys. Graham Ashcraft cannot be that guy. And in fact, when you look at what's coming, and we talked about this a lot with, looking at Noelvi Marte, but this holds true for Graham Ashcraft on the pitching side of things. The Reds have a really deep organization when it comes to pitching prospects. There are guys that are close to the majors that we talked about yesterday, like Rhett Lauder, Chase Burns, and Chase Petty. There are guys behind them, like the Jose Acuñas of the world. He got his first taste of camp this year. You're going to see so many other pitchers like that all throughout AA, throughout single A, Dayton, Daytona, all that stuff. The Reds have made it a point to become a pitching factory. And I think they're going to live up to that. It's taken a few years to get there because you got to develop the guys. But still, the point being, Graham Ashcraft's got to figure it out this year. Because if he doesn't figure it out this year, you're moving on to somebody else. And maybe he's a bullpen guy, and that's really where he finds his value, and the Reds get the best value out of him. But he's got to figure that out. What does that look like for him? Because you don't just put guys in the bullpen because they're not ready. They got to be ready for the bullpen too. We got to see what that means for Graham Ashcraft. He's just so frustrating when you look at his career because he's an easy to root for dude. His name's Doug, for crying out loud. It's easy to root for a guy named Doug. But he's easy to root for because he's got a great personality. Every time you hear like some sort of off-the-field conversation with him, it's always something cool, right? He seems like a cool dude to hang out with. But we need guys who can pitch, right? I'd like to believe that I'm a fun guy to hang out with. You don't want me pitching for the Reds. I don't want me pitching for the Reds. So we need Graham Ashcraft to figure out if he can be a guy that we want pitching for the Cincinnati Reds. In fact, if I had to nail down, I was trying to do this before I started today's show. I was trying to nail down a comparison, right? Just the first 3 years of their career. And there's a guy who pitched 3 years of his career as a Red that Graham Ashcraft, at least when you compare them statistically, there's some similarities. Graham Ashcraft is Brett Tomko with less innings. Now, don't get me wrong. I got my picture taken with Brett Tomko at Reds Fest, and I love that. And I have some fond memories of Brett Tomko as a Red, mostly pitching in King Griffey Jr. baseball. But yeah, like Brett Tomko's not in the conversation of best Reds pitcher ever. And Graham Ashcraft is definitely pitching himself out of that conversation right now. He's got to figure out who he is. And 2025 is the year to do it, because if he doesn't this year, don't know how much of an opportunity he's going to have to figure that out as a Red moving forward. But the group that Ashcraft may ultimately flourish with is the bullpen, and that is a group that should be the strength, or at least one of the strengths, for this Reds team this year. And I'll tell you why coming up next. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. It helps you find the right talent because if you need, help with a marketing campaign or something like that, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who will deliver incredible results. Plus, they offer cost-effective growth. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps find affordable, top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today. And there's no better time to get in on some great baseball futures than right now over on FanDuel. Plus, new users can create an account, and with your first winning $5 bet, you can get $200 in bonus bets. So many opportunities with that, obviously, with March Madness here and ready to go. All the games that are coming up this weekend, probably be able to turn that $5 into $200 pretty quickly. And then you could take that $200 and look at this easy over for the Redlegs. I mean, he's on the cover of MLB The Show. He is the fastest man in the game. Elly De La Cruz. His over-under on steals on FanDuel is 53.5. I mean, come on. He had way more than that last year. I don't expect him to have a steep drop-off in his stolen base total. I think he might even get more than he had last year. So 53.5, taking the over on that, that's easy money. The odds on that are minus 120 right now. Kind of tells me that might go up, so go get it. 53.5 over total stolen bases for Elly De La Cruz this season. That's over on FanDuel.com. Get in on the action right now. FanDuel is the number one sportsbook of Locked On. Thank you to our everydayers out there who make Locked On Reds your first listen every single day. If you're not an everydayer, you can become one by hitting that subscribe button. You won't miss any content that we've got coming for you all the way up to opening day, all the way through the season. We are here giving you Reds content every single day. And this season is going to be a lot of fun. I firmly believe that. I believe that the Reds and Terry Francona are on a journey that's going to end up in October, and they're going to be a playoff team. And I think one of those big reasons is the bullpen. The experience in this Reds bullpen will carry this team to the playoffs. Firmly believe that. The Reds did this job this offseason, and Nick Krall did a great job this offseason of amassing talent out in the pen. We always talk about, the different guys and different needs that you have in the offseason. And while we can sit here and lament about the big bopper in the middle of the lineup that plays in the outfield that they didn't get, he did a good job with the pitching, making sure that Nick Martinez stayed, go getting Brady Singer through trade, and signing a couple of dudes for this pen. Taylor Rogers and Scott Barlow are dudes. Make no mistake about it, because they are added to a group of 4 dudes who have closing experience in this bullpen. Of course, you have Alexis Díaz and you have Emilio Pagan as well, who have closing experience at some point in their careers. And while I am slightly worried about Alexis Díaz, this is now the second year in a row that he has had a rough spring training, I think he's going to get it together. And I think that Terry Francona, at least at the beginning of the season, is well aware of where all of his guys are in their readiness and all that other stuff. He has made no allusion to the idea that Alexis Díaz is going to be anywhere but on the opening day bullpen. Now, is that going to be as the closer? I don't know. It could be in a middle relief setup type role, getting ready for one of these other guys, because he can turn to Emilio Pagan if Alexis Díaz, if he doesn't have the confidence in Díaz that night. He can turn to Scott Barlow. He can turn to Taylor Rogers. In fact, I think the best version of this Reds bullpen is not by naming a king of the bullpen, one dude, and all tough situations go through him, because they have a couple of guys that can handle that, namely Taylor Rogers being closer / ace of the bullpen 1B. You have a lefty in Rogers who has actually pitched really well this spring, albeit spring training stats don't really matter, but he looks like he's ready to go. He's a guy that all throughout his career has pitched well out of the bullpen. And Alexis Díaz, we know, has that ability Last season, he was a perfect example of the whole sample size thing. After the month of May, he pitched really well. He had an ERA under 3. It's just that first month and a half of the season really kind of got to him a bit statistically. And that's why his statistics are a little bit paltry in comparison to some of the other closers in the league. And we've got this nagging feeling. And Steve talks about, it's the hairs on the back of your neck. Do they stand up when the guy comes out of the bullpen? And we've got that for Alexis Díaz. He's not a guy that we have the utmost confidence in right now, but he used to. And I think he can get back to that. Scott Barlow, Taylor Rogers, and Emilio Pagan are guys that can give us that comfortability. In fact, the Reds have a lot of different options, and Terry Francona kind of has a wealth of talent in this bullpen between the experience that's going to lead the bullpen forward, but he also has innings eaters. He's got Brent Suter, who's going to start in the bullpen this year. And you've also got guys that could be added to the bullpen in Carson Spires and Graham Ashcraft, who can also provide that long relief role that I think that we have found over the years is a very valuable role. Like long relief used to be the type of thing, like when I thought about a long relief pitcher, I thought that meant that's a mop-up guy. That's not somebody that you're really excited about having on your team, but he's a necessity. Now I'm pretty excited about that, watching how David Bell managed some of these guys and saying, well, yeah, everybody in the bullpen's a multi-inning guy. It's like, David, what are you talking about, man? Like some of these guys need to get 3 outs and get out of there. Brent Suter's not one of those guys. Neither is Carson Spires nor hopefully Graham Ashcraft. As we talked about in the first segment, I think that's ultimately the best role for him on this team, is filling that multi-innings guy. We've talked about this throughout the offseason. And as much as he's not in shape and there are questions about his readiness, I think ultimately this is the role that he fills. And then you look at some guys that have potential, some guys that have great upside. Tony Santillan leads that list. Tony Santillan, I mean, we saw him for a little bit last year out of the pen. We saw him for a little bit the year before that out of the pen. He is a guy that has all the talent in the world. The stuff is definitely there. Can he stay healthy? Can he stay consistent? That's really what's going to vault him to the possibility. I mean, he's got the kind of upside to be the ace of this bullpen. I firmly believe that. And that's why he is a shoo-in for me for opening day. But then you have some other upside guys. Joe LaSorsa, who we talked about on Monday, in case you missed it, left-hander reliever, 26 years old, sinker slider dude. He is throwing harder than he ever has by a couple miles an hour on average with his 2 pitches this year in spring training. So he's ready to go. He could find a spot on this bullpen if Sam Maul is deemed not ready and they send him to AAA Louisville to take some extra time to get ready. Then you also got 2 young guys who are not going to be on the opening day roster, but we're going to see them at some point this year because they are too talented to remain in AAA. That is Zach Maxwell and Luis May. I've talked about them a little bit throughout the offseason. They're guys that have 100+ mile an hour fastballs, and they need to work on their command a little bit. The consistency is not quite there, but if they can figure that out, if they can add that to their game, boy, they can be a lot of fun. Everybody, if you've seen the clip of Zach Maxwell at the spring breakout game where he strikes the guy out and he looks at the opposing dugout and he goes, boy, I want that on this bullpen. I want that. I really, and plus his nickname, Big Sugar, come on. Easy game-worn uniform for me to go get if Zach Maxwell makes the major leagues, which I think he will at some point this season. I also saw a debate a little bit about his walk-up music, and Big Sugar obviously leads you to believe that, pour some sugar on me, Def Leppard, easy. But I'd almost like to see him walk up to like a song by Biggie or something like that, like When They Call Me Big Papa, something like that. Anyway, whatever. Zach Maxwell, Luis May, going to be some dudes on this bullpen, some upside plays for them, but they even have some veteran wild cards depending on, if they hang around or not. Guys like Ian Jabot, who have done it before, but can provide depth in AAA if they hang around. So I don't think they make the opening day roster. But I really feel like this bullpen is led by the experience of the 4 closers. We're just going to call them the 4 closers, right? Díaz, Pagan, Barlow, and Rogers are going to be the guys that Terry Francona can lean on in so many different situations. And I still believe that Díaz can be the leader of this group, but Díaz has help at the top with Taylor Rogers. Then you got Pagan and Barlow right below them. And the pecking order for the bullpen kind of falls in line a little bit with, you got Brent Suter, Tony Santillan. Hopefully Sam Maul can get up here. Maybe Joe LaSorsa's jumping up there really fast. I love what the Reds have in their options in the bullpen. Is it as good as the Dodgers bullpen? No. But is it better than last year's? I believe so. And I think that it's going to be a reason to believe in a playoff appearance for your Cincinnati Reds this season. But we're only 1 week away from opening day. We're only 1 week away from starting this amazing journey. But when it comes to the number 7 in Reds history, it's not an easy pick. I'll tell you why coming up next.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
If you can't watch us on YouTube, you can always listen to us on your favorite podcast app. We're seriously on all of them out there. All right, we're a week away. Can't wait. March 27th. We are so close. And I'm starting to look at the extended forecast, and I'm not loving what I'm seeing so far, but you aren't going to be able to dampen my spirit for that day. I'm so excited. Whatever the weather's going to be, I don't care. I'm just hoping the forecast looks a little bit better the closer we get. Fingers crossed on that one. Anyway, 7, as far as the number, is not as easy as, the number 8 with Joe Morgan, where it was, obviously he's the best number 8 in Reds history. The best number 7 in Reds history, that's quite up for debate. And you get into different eras and different teams because, honestly, if you just go by wins above replacement, which we have done in some cases when Steve and I really look at this, then it's Eugenio Suarez. Suarez has 12.8 wins above replacement in his tenure as a Red, wearing the number 7. That's the other stipulation too. Like, you go back through the history, I think Ernie Lombardi wore the number 7 for like a minute, but I'm talking about the years that the player wore the number. And Suarez led everybody with 12.8 WAR, but there's some other guys right behind him that you can make arguments for. Everybody's going to immediately think of Mariano Duncan and his amazing 1990 season, 120 OPS plus. For guys like me that I was a baby in 1990, and I wish I could remember more about that, but I was a baby. To know that a guy like Mariano Duncan had 120 OPS plus and over 400 at bats is really impressive to see what he did. So he's up there. Definitely a different argument where he was only here for 3 years and he really only had one good year. So do you go longevity or do you go easy performance? Another 1 year performance that was amazing was Kevin Mitchell. 1994 went crazy in the shortened season there. But then there's another one, and this guy, you got to go back for this guy, okay? So bear with me for a minute. Ray Mueller. Now, if you know who Ray Mueller is, it's because you know Reds history. Our friend Cam Miller over at the Reds Hall of Fame Museum, he knows who Ray Mueller is. But Ray Mueller was a catcher for the Reds back in the 40s and early 50s. And he had actually, so I talk about wins above replacement, Eugenio Suarez at 12.8. Ray Mueller had 11.5. So he's right behind him there. And Ray Mueller had something that Eugenio did not have. A sick nickname. Ray Mueller, nicknamed Iron Man. And this was before Marvel came, like way before Marvel came out with the movie, right? I think this was before they came out. I don't think Iron Man was around back then as a comic book. I probably should have looked that up before I hit record. Anyway, but yeah, Iron Man Ray Mueller behind the plate for your Reds back in the 40s and the 50s. That's a strong case right there. There's a guy whose name, not his nickname, but his name is fun because, I said 40s and 50s for Ray Mueller as a catcher. Right after him was Smokey Burgess. He had 8 wins above replacement as a catcher for the Reds back in the 50s. And then there's a couple of names that are interesting. Paul Janisch, Definitely did not come close to Eugenio Suarez in WAR, but we remember Paul Janish playing some shortstop. And then how about this name? You're going to remember Juan Castro. I'm sure you remember Juan Castro because he was here forever. But did you know that in 8 years as a Red, he had a total of -1 WAR? But you might have known that. And if you didn't know that, now you do. Juan Castro, utility guy extraordinaire. Man, but I don't know. I think I'd give the edge to Gino because, I mean, we do this like we did with Frank McCormick and Eddie Taubensee the other day, where it's like it's eras and the game is better now. Pitchers are better now than they were back in the 40s and the 50s. But that nickname, Iron Man, I think it's a tie, 50-50. Tell me what you think. Eugenio Suarez or Iron Man Ray Mueller? Who you picking there? Or are you picking Mariano Duncan? Maybe you're picking Mariano Duncan. Anyway, I want to close out today's show. I finally got me MLB The Show, and I was playing around with it. I am not particularly good at the game. So if you typed a challenge in the comment section, I will play with you, but don't expect there to be any challenge from me because I just like to have fun with the game. But one of my favorite things to do with any sports game is to do with franchise mode. So clearly, the first thing that you do when you play a fake game and you have a fake franchise with the Reds, you extend Elly De La Cruz. And if this were real, man, I'd cry tears of happiness. 10 years, $230 million for Elly De La Cruz? They should have done that yesterday. Now they're not. We've told you millions of times before, but I just thought it was kind of fun, right? You boot up MLB The Show. First thing you got to do is make sure Elly De La Cruz ain't leaving the Reds for a decade. And if you could do that for $23 million per year, he's going to get way more than that. And that's why Scott Boras isn't listening to any contract offer the Reds make right now. I'm pretty sure the Reds could come at him with the exact same offer that Juan Soto just got from the Mets. And Scott Boras will tell them that he's going to be worth more than that next year. Because Scott Boras knows he's going to get Elly paid. Because Elly's just going to keep getting better. We see it. You put a challenge in front of him, and he takes over that challenge. He just absolutely owns it, and he gets that much better for it. But MLB The Show. It's got Elly on the cover. If you haven't seen the cover, it's great. It's Elly, it's Paul Skeens, and it's Gunnar Henderson on the cover of the show. I was kind of hoping Elly would be on by himself. You remember when he made that announcement on Instagram? When, he said he was going to be on the cover. I'm like, oh, let's go. And Elly cover, maybe buy me a couple, put them in the background. But yeah, I got him in the background right there. Elly, Paul Skeens, Gunnar Henderson, all that stuff. But the show is out. We're 7 days away. Opening day, it's almost here. We're done with the Tokyo series. And how about that? Reds haven't even played a game, and they're already one game ahead of the Cubs. Gotta love that. And that is where we will end today's podcast. Thanks, everybody, for checking out today's Locked On Reds podcast. If you are not, make sure you hit that subscribe button. That way you don't miss anything that we've got coming up for you here. Coming up tomorrow, we're going to continue getting ready for opening day. Talk about the best number 6 in Reds history. But, 6 days away. Going to be less than a week. Baseball's back, baby. Can't wait for it. Going to be all over it here because, we're Locked On Reds every single day.